Hello, everybody. This is Filipine News Network, and I'm Daniel. Our guest today, I have the Nabo from Wales, United Kingdom. We'll be discussing about the political situation in Oromia and Ethiopia. And also, today we got new news from the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army leaders, the OLA commanders, Jalmarro and Jalgamachu spoke today. And in their today's speech to Oromia national media, they revealed some new information about how the negotiations between the Ethiopian government and the OLF OLA transpired in Tanzania early this year and last year. Especially, Jalmarro gave us some new insight into what has been going on in Tanzania. In his today's speech to interview with Oromia National Media, Jalmarro stated that the Ethiopian government negotiators at some point during the negotiation stopped the negotiation and asked the OLF OLA leaders to meet them in person because they said they had some message from the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed directly to the OLA. And that message was that the Abiy Ahmed government wanted the OLA to form an alliance with the Ethiopian government and in order to fight the Eritrean government and the Fano Amhara militants. The OLA did not accept that offer. They didn't accept that offer and they didn't like it because they understood that, or rather say, they determined that that would not resolve the Oromo people's aspiration for self-determination. And also that the OLF OLA leaders stated the Oromo people do not struggle, or the Oromo people's liberation movement is not meant to oppress other nations. The Oromo people would want the same right to other nations, including the Amhara and the Eritreans. So the OLF OLA leaders do not accept that offer, and that is what, from my understanding, changed the pace and the way the negotiation was concluded. And we will discuss in detail about that, especially both leaders, the Oromo Liberation Army, Oromo Liberation Front leaders, Jalmarro and Jalgamachu, stated almost similar points about the negotiations. The Ethiopian government representatives were trying to offer some positions to the OLF OLA leaders, and they were not genuine in resolving the issues, the political issues that drove, that's the driving force behind the military movement in Oromia. So we'll discuss about that with the Nabo, and also in our today's program, we'll discuss about what has happened to his own father in the last couple of days. Nabo, welcome to Infinite News Network.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
So, Nabo, I learned that your father was detained in Shashmane a couple of days ago, and at this moment, it seems like that he has been released. What happened? And I have some news that your father has been exposed to similar harassment over the years, and I assume this is the most recent one. And so far, your own father has been detained by the Ethiopian security forces more than 7-8 times. Can you tell us what is going on and why are they interested in detaining and harassing your dad?
From what I know, the reason why my father was has always been targeted is because he's an Oromo, and two, he is a man of integrity with clarity of thoughts, and he always said no to human rights violations and to atrocities that Ethiopia has perpetrated against the Oromo. My father, he is someone who has spent most of his life going into and out of prison. That's why we're not surprised when what happened a couple of days ago, because it wasn't unusual for him. Like you mentioned, my dad, in all regimes, he spent most of his time. And me growing up as a child, I cannot remember a year or two consecutive, 1 or 2 years of dad staying with us. That's the situation. I'll get back to that, and let me briefly touch up on what happened on Monday. My father was in bed, was early hours of the morning. Heavily armed soldiers arrived. They raided his house and they surrounded the area as if they were going to fight some combatants. He's just an ordinary elderly civilian. So they invaded, effectively they invaded his compound, and they took him away. Even after they took him away, the soldiers stayed in the area. I mean, in the compound. These are heavily armed soldiers, very, very aggressive. They were aggressively acting towards my father. Some even tried to hit him, but thankfully there were some other soldiers who intervened and stopped each other from hitting my dad. So they took him away and they took him to local police station in Shashmane. And hours later, they brought him back with them to search the house. They strip searched the house and they found nothing. All they found was his clothes with some flag of OLF, which is not illegal. That's it. That's all they found, and they took him back. So this afternoon, they released him, and that's what happened. And they haven't told him the reason why they arrested him. They haven't told him why they acted the way they acted, and so it's a usual thing. So I mean, like I said earlier, I grew up witnessing this always. There were times when they wanted to shoot him in front of us, but they stopped one another. I could say my father his life is a miracle. I mean, there were times when many of people who were in the concentration camp with him and who were taken out, murdered, killed, and then when his turn came, for some reasons, they disagreed with one another and they spared his life. They, in one of his most recent arrests, prolonged recent arrests, he was even exposed to COVID. He caught COVID in the concentration camp. This is during COVID time. He survived it. That's why I said my father's life. The fact that he's still alive is a miracle for me. You know, there are times when he got kidnapped and his whereabouts was not known, and this is what we grew up witnessing. But what is now changing is the frequency of the army raiding his house, particularly after Abiy Ahmed came to power. They're very aggressive. They hit my mother, my siblings, and they caused damages to his house recently. So it is getting worse and worse. I mean, for my dad, this doesn't, you know, change his position. You know, every time they arrest him, detain him for a prolonged period of time, after they release it, the first question they put to him is, look, why don't you work with us? Why don't you become our member? But that was never acceptable for him. Not just today, even when we were children, when he was fired from his work, he would work as a teacher. He was suspended from teaching, and then he started practicing law again. He was banned from practicing law. They tried to cripple his livelihood to force him to surrender to their demands. Mind you, this happened when we were children, when we were growing up. But that didn't change my father's position. He is always himself, and he stood for what he believed in. But what is absurd is that trend has continued today. He's an elderly man of 80s, and you know he should be left alone, but they keep doing it. So the point I'm trying to make is my dad's sufferings, my dad's life, and his resilience is reflective of millions of Oromo. Not only that, it's the fact that the atrocities that Ethiopia has perpetrated against the Oromo is intergenerational. Like I said to you, even before I was born, my father would face the same situation from the Derg regime and from the Haile Selassie regime. And I grew up as a child in Opidio TPLF regime, and I grew up witnessing that, and myself facing the same atrocity, and my siblings also facing the same atrocities. Now it hasn't stopped there. You know, when yesterday the soldiers raided his house, and they were very intimidating. My niece and nephews, my dad's grandchildren, were having to witness this, and you know the trauma that this could cause to children is damaging in many ways. Some of my siblings, some of us are resilient, some of us are not. There are some of my siblings who have been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder at their childhood from what they witnessed. And now my niece and nephews are having to witness this. So this is reflective of the millions of Oromo who are having to face the atrocities. Like I said, what makes the Abiy regime different to TPLF Opidio and to the regime before him was the intensity and the cruelty of what they do. and the outright arrogance. They, you know, they have made it, all these their modus operandi. You know, they turn up, they can do whatever they want, and thank God my dad is still alive. Like I said, his survival is a miracle. There are people who are shot dead, who are facing, you know, massacre, which we have been talking about for a long time. So this is the reality of my family and of my nation. That's all I could say.
Thank you, Nabo. You rightly described about your dad, and thank you for answering before I could ask the question about his age. You mentioned that your dad is nearly 80 years old, and he's an elderly person. And for somebody with the right mind, an 80 years old person in no way threaten the government. And so, why would they go back and harass him at this age? What is their motivation? What would they gain from this? And what message do they want to send home?
Well, one thing I know about my dad is that he believes in himself and in his identity, and that is not subject for any kind of compromise. He's you know, a man. He's opinion leader of his community. I'm not talking about the politics. Now, particularly now that he's an elderly, he's just minding his business. He's looking after his, you know, farm, his livestock, as you know, his livelihood was taken away from him by the government. But he's someone who people take as a model. You know, he's a community elder. Whenever there are issues, people come to him for advice, for consulting, and those kinds of role that he's playing at the moment. And I really don't know what's going on in their mind. Probably his integrity, and the fact that he's someone the community listens to, infuriates them, because they want this. Look, what the PP government, Abiy Ahmed's government are doing is, one, if you are not with them, you are against them, regardless of your age, regardless of your occupation, and particularly if now they are playing lots of drama, saying, oh, the Sinke leaders, the Sinke mothers, and the Gada leaders, the elders, they have prepared their own fake Gada leaders, fake traditional institutional leaders to drum up their propaganda. And they wanted my dad to join them. But there is no way joining them, you know, drumming up their propaganda would be acceptable for my dad. So what they're trying to do now is they're trying to make his life as miserable and as difficult as possible on one hand. And on the other hand, look, he's an elderly man. Why would they send army of soldiers, heavily armed, large number of soldiers to his residence? One, it is to continue to inflict fear to his family. I'm not living there.
Are there any members of your siblings who are members of the Oromo Liberation Front or Liberation Army at this moment?
Pardon?
Is there any family member who is a member of the OLF OLA and back home, like any one of the young brothers or sisters?
No. Myself and my two brothers forced to flee the country. One of my youngest brother recently he received death threat because he runs a taekwondo training institution for livelihood, and they accused him of giving military training to OLA. I mean, he has nothing to do with OLA, and he is just making making his livelihood by training children. And he was an instructor at one of the private universities. He would teach taekwondo. So he would run that institution with a couple of other people, and he was tipped off when his friends were arrested, and he had to flee the country. And my younger brother, who is my immediate younger brother, he was a lawyer and a teacher. He suffered torture and prolonged prison in Maakalawi. Finally, he had to flee the country. And our elder brother, he's a pastor. He preached the gospel. Even he is facing attack every now and then. It was only recently they arrested him and attacked him for no reason. My sisters as well. They, there was a time when my teenage sister was arrested because she said she loved her dad. So to answer the question, none of my siblings are in the army. Even if there was one in the army, or there were some in the army, they're grown-ups, they're adults, they can make their own decision. Just, I can make my own decision. My father shouldn't be penalized for my actions and for my behavior. But what they're doing now for those people, for those parents and siblings whose children are perceived to have joined the Oromo Liberation Army, there are many who were killed and the many whose whereabouts are unknown.
Thank you, Dadawa. Thank you very much for that. So this is one specific and example of how the Ethiopian government is harassing the Oromo citizens at this moment. Nobody is spared, as the Nabo pointed out. His dad, who is about 80 years old, is facing harassment, repeated harassment, and has been detained 7-8 times before this. And he was harassed by previous government and the current government as well. As the Nabo pointed out, the frequency and intensity of the harassment has increased, and it has become more and more intense, and it's taking place almost on daily basis, and many people did not get a chance to survive. Some are killed, executed, and thrown away in the bush, and some are jailed. Their whereabouts are unknown, and this is happening, and the government does this without any sign of slowing down. The Ethiopian government misses one thing, that by harassing the people, there is nothing that it can gain. There's no way that the Oromo population will support the government because of the harassment. If the Ethiopian government wants to gain any support from the community, it has to listen to them. It has to respect the Oromo's demand and deal with the Oromo's demand. But the Ethiopian government seems to have missed that, and it has chosen to use, the stick from, the carrot and the stick. Um, so at this moment, the Ethiopian government has continued. Just last week, as we all remember, the Ethiopian government security forces detained Batte Urgessa, and within a few hours, they executed him and threw his body in a dump site, and eventually uh, they tried to prevent the families of Batte Urgessa from collecting his body, and then arrested people. And there are some news that they detained the guard of the hotel where Batte was snapped from. And so the government is trying to hide some information and evidence about who has taken, who conducted the murder. And as we all know, Batte Urgessa had been under close surveillance for quite some time now. And at around the end of February and early March, when Batte and one French journalist, Antonin, I spoke, the government detained both the journalist and Batte Urgessa. And so it doesn't make any sense that the government is not behind this killing, but the government is trying to whitewash itself and point its fingers towards others, or create some kind of rogue group might have conducted this killing, but nobody's going to trust that. So still, the Oromo community are demanding for impartial and a national investigation into this killing. And so as we speak, the harassment has continued. Church members are not spared, as one of the Ethiopian media, Ethiopian Forum, reported today. Several churchgoers in West Wolaga zones in Agdami, around 9 of them, and around Nekant in East Wolaga zone, around 14 of them were taken out of church and executed by Ethiopian security forces. When we come back to the new revelation about how the negotiation between the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army, and the Ethiopian government when they are quite surprising that the Ethiopian government would ask the OLA during those negotiations. In the negotiation, as we all know, took place in the presence of coordinators and mediators, such as the U.S. Officials. John Monroe specified among the mediators at the moment where there could be mediators or observers, and I'm not clear about that, where Masinga, the U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia, was among those who were at the negotiation. Others are such as the government of Norway and IGAD and the Kenyan government were mentioned to be among the mediators. In their presence at that negotiation, the Ethiopian government was trying to lure the OLA leadership to form an alliance with the Ethiopian government and fight against Eritrean and Amhara forces. When I look at this, why was the Ethiopian government so desperate and wanted to form an alliance while it is already negotiating with the OLA? That, like, why didn't they wait and bring this up and at least form some kind of alliance before mentioning about fighting against the Amhara and against the Eritrean forces? And how do you see this and the level? I know that you are a very close analyst of the political situation that's going on in Oromia and then Ethiopia. What do you feel about what has happened?
I think, first of all, the Ethiopian government, under the leadership of Abiy Ahmed, has proved to the world time and again that they're not credible entity, they're not trustworthy entity to enter into any kind of negotiation with. Because one, they they're not trustworthy in the sense that they don't keep their promises or whatever they agreed to. Just to give you a little bit background of what I'm talking about. Before the Oromo Liberation Front moved its headquarters from Asmara, Eritrea, to back into Finfinne, there were deals that were made with the Oromo Liberation Front with regard to what would happen to the members, with regard to how to conduct, to allow the Oromo Liberation Front to conduct their political programs peacefully in the country, and to restore the properties of the Oromo Liberation Front that were confiscated by Ethiopian government in 1990s, and many promises. It was based on this agreement that the Oromo Liberation Front decided to move from its headquarters from Asmara to Finfinne. Of course, there were many pressures. There were many pressures saying, no, these guys are not trustworthy. The Oromo Liberation Front shouldn't take that risk. On the other hand, there were people, particularly from the Oromo, who were saying, look, Abiy Ahmed is an Oromo, Lemma Magarsa is an Oromo. So why? Because at that time, the Oromo Liberation Front was demanding for a third party to be involved in that agreement. And but the Oromo Liberation Front, the OLF, was criticized for making that demand with regard to involvement of the third party. People are saying, "Oh, how come you, the two guys are brothers? How come you required the involvement of the third party?" And now, retrospectively, OLF was right. OLF was vindicated because the Abiy Ahmed's regime, they did not only failed to deliver on the promises, but they went on to put the leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front behind the bar. And thank God, the Oromo Liberation Army was not tricked at that time. They foresaw it. The Oromo Liberation Army foresaw it, and they said, no, we're not going to disarm. There were many attempts in 2018 and 2019 to discredit the Oromo Liberation Army, but they stood their ground because they could see that Abiy Ahmed and his governments were not trustworthy. What have the government of Abiy Ahmed done to the leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front? Many of them were put behind the bar, and those who he could bribe. By the way, Abiy Ahmed believes money can change everybody's mind. And so the power of money has worked for him in getting some members of the Oromo Liberation Front to betray their organization in 2018 and 19 and join his government. Of course, the good thing is they left OLF and joined Abiy Ahmed's government. There were many who trusted Abiy Ahmed, not just opposition parties, by the way. His own members, Abiy Ahmed's very colleagues, the likes of Lemma Magarsa, he was not trustworthy to Lemma Magarsa, the very person whom he was saying only death death can depart us. Nothing will come between me and Lemma. And then he got rid of Lemma. Who else he get rid of? Tayyid and Da. I mean, the very person who was defending Abiy Ahmed and going extra miles to defend Abiy Ahmed by dehumanizing the Oromo Liberation Army and the Oromo Liberation Movement. And finally, look, Abiy Ahmed put him behind the bar. So I think the Oromo Liberation Army knew this. So this time, why were they... To talk about Tanzania, to begin with, look, Abiy Ahmed and his government, they were not in real good faith when they traveled to Tanzania to bring about peace. They were not prepared to give and take for win-win political negotiation. That's proven because of the way they were acting, the way they were behaving, both in the country and outside the country, the level of propaganda. So on this round, where they made that proposal, I think Abiy Ahmed and his government were trying to kill many birds with one stone. He wanted to get rid of the Tigrayans. He wanted to get rid of now the relationship Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki has grown very, very rough from what we gather. Even though Isaias Afwerki took the risk of involving with Abiy Ahmed in the genocide, in the genocidal war against Eritrea, against Tigray. So now Abiy Ahmed wants to use them to attack each other. To use the Oromo Liberation Army to attack the Amhara, and then to use the Tigrayan forces against the Amhara, and to go to war with Eritrea. So this proposal of Abiy Ahmed only shows his naivety. That doesn't have anything to do with the cause of the Oromo, and the Oromo Liberation Army knew this very well. They knew it very well. What I've learned from that conversation and from the speech of John Marro, the leader of the Oromo Liberation Army, is that the Ethiopian government, particularly under Abiy Ahmed, are not in a position to want to negotiate and to bring about any kind of peace. They have proven themselves to be enemies of peace. So they're not prepared at all to conduct any kind of meaningful negotiation. And the only reason why they decided to go to the negotiating table in Tanzania were two. One, because of the growing strength of the Oromo Liberation Army, the discipline of the Oromo Liberation Army, the commitment of the Oromo Liberation Army, the fact that the Oromo Liberation Army have come to realize that the Oromo nation are facing existential threats, and they are determined to curb that existential threat that the Oromo people are facing. That is one. And two, because of the mounting pressure from the international community, the parties that were involved in the negotiation process, which Abiy Ahmed apparently was infuriated by, and because his deceptive demands were not accepted by the Oromo Liberation Army, and the negotiation stopped. And will it end there? I doubt it will not end there, and I hope the negotiation will resume, but that only coming down to the strength of the Oromo Liberation Army.
Thank you very much, Nebo. So in his conversation today, in his interview with the Oromia National Media today, Jalmaro and Jalgamachu spoke about how around the end. Well, first they say the Ethiopian government representatives first wanted to negotiate about the army, about the military, and the Jalmaro stated that the Oromo side, the Oromo Liberation Front, the Oromo Liberation Army representatives didn't want that. They wanted to discuss about the political aspect of the conflict, and the Cuban government didn't want that. So that was one of the disagreement at the negotiation, and then once they started discussing about the political aspect of the negotiation, the Ethiopian government offered an alliance with the OLA, and so that they can fight against the Amhara militants, they can fight against the TDF and Eritrean forces, and the OLF rejected that. And Jalmaro mentioned among the Ethiopian government representatives, Aredian Hussein, tried to say, look at me, I am representing the Silte people, and I'm working with the government, and my people are now enjoying peace. Why don't you just work with the government and enjoy, and your people can enjoy the same peace? And Jalmaro, well, the Oromo Liberation Army leadership did not accept that. The OLF did not accept that, and they continued the negotiation. And Jalmaro, and both Gamacho and Jalmaro, states that around the end, the OLF OLA were expecting the negotiation would continue because, according to Jalmaro, the government representatives were they acted as if like children. They would stuck at something and run to their hotel, they come back and negotiate. The mediators will bring them, kind of coerce them to come to the table. And again, they would run away, kind of feel angry. They are upset and they run away towards their hotel. And they come back again and they continue. And around the end, the OLA felt that the negotiation would continue, but eventually, while they were expecting the negotiation would continue, Radwan Hussein went on Twitter, the moment X, and in Jalmaro's words in broken English, released some statement about the failure of the negotiation. And so the OLA was forced also to issue a statement about that, according to Jalmaro's and Gamacho's statement today. And so there is a lot of revelation about the negotiation, about the Ethiopian government. Jalmaro stated that the Ethiopian government was saying the OLF has not captured any zone, any district, and its force was not strong enough, and it should accept the Ethiopian government's offers. And it was not even Jalmaro or the OLN negotiators who had to state that no, that's inaccurate, because U.S. Ambassador Masinga, according to Jalmaro, was one of those who mentioned, even I, who is living in the capital, cannot go out in Toto and stroll peacefully because the surrounding is under the OLS control, and the security situation outside the capital was not certain. So there was not accurate information, even according to the U.S. ambassador. And so a lot has been revealed in this in today's interviews. Those who are able to listen Afan Oromo, who understand Afan Oromo, should listen to Oromia National Media for the full content. It was the first round was televised today, and it was transmitted on, I think, on YouTube, on Telegram, and Rumble, and Facebook and other social media accounts of the Oromia National Media. A lot has been revealed. Also, Jalmaro and Gamachu highlighted about the opportunities their travel towards Tanzania that it gave to the OLA, because they got time together and they could, they could work on some internal issues, and they iron some hardships, and try to fix a lot of things. And Jalmaro and both Jalgamachu stated that some of the infiltrates, the forces that the government sends towards the OLA to tarnish the image of the OLA has been filtered out and removed from the OLA rank and files, and from the armies. And the both leaders also stated they expanded the Oromo Liberation Army into 8 zones, and up to that moment it was only classified into 5 zones. And now they added a Horan Study zone, and as well as one Guji zone that operates around the gold mining site. And so those 2 zones are added, and now there are 8 zones. So the Oromo Liberation Army now operates under in 8 different zones, and then under 8 classification, and they have created what is called the Gumisaba that contains about 57 leaders, and 5 central committee, 7 central committee, and the 5 a waiting list for the central committee members. So overall, 57 leadership have been elected or appointed, and so there was reorganization and clearing of rank and files, and removing those who are suspected to have been engaged in tarnishing the image of the OLA. And Jalmaro and both Jalgamachu and Jalmaro said they are now ready to start operations. They are close to completing the training of new recruits, and the OLA is now ready to start taking actions. And so it looks like in near future there might be some intense fighting between the Ethiopian government forces and the OLA. And also the fact that both Jalmaro and Jalgamachu spoke together today gives a lot of weight into the what they have to say, because over the last 5-6 years a lot has been done. The OLA grew exponentially, and now they're taking the time, reorganizing, and creating some stability. Means a lot to the Oromo people, and I hope this is going to unite those who are supporters and those who are living outside Oromia, as well as those living inside Oromia. In addition to all the news and information, very interesting information that both leaders gave us today, they also gave call to the Oromo people. They call to the Oromo people to unite and to put an end to this. It's not going to be only the OLA who is going to bring an end to what is going on, the human rights violations, the continued murder of the Oromo civilians, and the continued long-term detention of the Oromo leaders, and especially Jalmaro stated that he is heartbroken about the assassination of Batte Urgessa, and he said that the Oromo has to put an end to this, and we should not continue to mourn one after the other, and Marro called for the Oromo people to rise up and put an end to this. And concerning Taye Renda, Jalmaro said that he was once a colleague and a friend at school, and they were in prison together. And they both, when Jalmaro joined the OLA, the OLF, both tried to join. And Jalmaro mentioned that he had told Taye early on when they were trying to join the OLF that if you want to speak, you have to have a force. If you don't have a force and you speak, you will end up in prison and you will end up, at the mercy of those who are in power. And instead, the Taye didn't care about that, and he went ahead and spoke. And even though at some point he was praising Abiy's government and describing the OLA as if they were, they were bad, the bad fruits. Jalmaro kind of like knew that if he spoke, he would end up like that. So there is a message for others too. Those who are in the government, those who are Oromo and in the government and think this is Oromo government, they have to learn now from what has happened to Tair and others like Lama Magarsa, you also mentioned today. With that, I think that is a few of the important and interesting information that we heard from Yalmaro and Jalgamachu today. The program is going to continue. I don't know when, and it could be today or tomorrow or any other day. If there are additional revelations, we might come back again at it and discuss about it. For me, that's all. Thanks so much, Danabo. If you want to say something about this or about any other, it's your time.
Yeah, just a couple of points to second what you've said. I think the Tanzania negotiation, even though it hasn't gone very far, the extent to which it's gone is a massive success for the Oromo Liberation Army. It is a massive success for the Oromo Liberation Army because, one, it has vindicated the Oromo Liberation Army. The negotiation took place at a global platform in the presence of global actors, credible global actors. And it was at this platform that the Ethiopian government demonstrated to the world that they're not prepared for peace. That's why I said it has vindicated the Oromo Liberation Army, while on the other hand, exposed the government of Abiy Ahmed to the world in the sense that they're not prepared for peace. That is one. On the other hand, it has also highlighted the fact that the ball is now in the court of the Oromo people. That the world have seen that Abiy Ahmed is not prepared for peaceful means of solving political problems. And now it is up to the Oromo people to face the reality and strengthen the Oromo Liberation Army in responding to the calls of the two OLA leaders. And this, in general, that is what clearly we learn from the Tanzania. I mean, there is no war in the world that could end without negotiation. Of course, all wars end with negotiations, but it's when you have strength, when you have strong army, when you have strong muscle, that you get the ear and attention of others, including the party you are fighting. So I think that was really very, very good message delivered by the two leaders. And now the world have seen, and the Oromo also have seen. Then the court again is back to the Oromo's court with regard to enhancing the strength and the support given to the Oromo Liberation Army. That's what I wanted to add.
That has been Fifine News Network, and our guest today was the Nebo Wario from Wales, United Kingdom. It's in the evening over there. Thanks so much, the Nebo, for giving us your time, and we'll be back another time again, analyzing about the political situation in Oromia and Ethiopia. And so much over today. Thanks so much for watching. And
thank you for having me, Daniel.
all right, everybody. So this is Fifine News Network. We will follow up the Oromia National Media and the messages and interviews of the Oromo Liberation Front, Oromo Liberation Army, Higher Command Yalmaro, and his deputy Yal Gamachu. I'll get back to you. Till then, bye.